I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but the past few months, my life has been completely turned upside down. I've always been that guy who plans everything meticulously, avoids risks, and believes in logic. My life was pretty predictable. 28 years old, working as a software engineer in Lviv, Ukraine, with a stable job, renting a small but cozy apartment, and dating a wonderful girl, Olena, with whom I was already discussing our future. My parents are simple, hard-working people from a small town in western Ukraine who worked their whole lives in a factory. We never had any big family secrets or unexpected relatives. I was an only child, and my family tree seemed as straightforward and clear to me as the code I wrote every day. It all started in mid-January, when I got home from work. In the mailbox was a large, thick envelope with a logo I'd never seen before. Rosenberg and Associates, Attorneys at Law, New York. My heart skipped a beat. My first thought was spam or some kind of advertisement. But on the envelope was my full name and address, written in elegant calligraphy. I opened it, and inside I found 2 sheets of thick paper and a business card. The letter began, "Dear Mr. Ivan Kovalchuk, we regret to inform you of the passing of your grandfather, Mr. Oleksandr Kovalchuk, which occurred on January 5th of this year. According to his last will and testament, you are the sole heir to his estate." I froze. Oleksandr Kovalchuk. That was my paternal grandfather's name, but my grandfather died when I was 5 years old. I remembered him very vaguely, just some fragments of memories of his warm smile and the smell of tobacco. My parents always said he died of a heart attack and that he was a simple village teacher. No mention of New York, lawyers, or any inheritance. I reread the letter again, then a third time. His estate includes significant financial assets and real estate in New York State. My brain refused to process this information. This had to be a mistake or a prank. I felt the blood drain from my face. I went to the kitchen, poured myself some water, my hands trembling. Then I saw the phone number on the business card. It was a direct line to New York. I hesitated, but curiosity and some strange, cold premonition made me dial it. "Rosenberg and Associates, good morning." "Good morning. My name is Ivan Kovalchuk. I received a letter." "Ah, Mr. Kovalchuk, we were expecting your call. My name is Sarah Rosenberg. I was your grandfather, Oleksandr Kovalchuk's personal attorney." "Excuse me, but my grandfather died many years ago, and he was a simple teacher in Ukraine. No mention of New York, lawyers, or any inheritance." "Mr. Kovalchuk, we understand your shock. Your grandfather, Oleksandr Kovalchuk, indeed passed away in Ukraine in 1999. But that was not the Oleksandr Kovalchuk you knew. Your biological grandfather, Oleksandr Petrovich Kovalchuk, emigrated to the United States in 1948. He was a successful businessman and philanthropist. He never forgot his family in Ukraine, but circumstances did not allow him to contact you directly. He left you everything he had." These words hit me like lightning. Biological grandfather? Emigrated in 1948? Successful businessman? This was utterly absurd. I couldn't believe my ears. Everything I knew about my family was a lie. "Can you provide any proof?" I asked, trying not to sound too desperate. "Of course. We have all the necessary documents, including your father's birth certificate, which lists Oleksandr Kovalchuk as the father, as well as a DNA test your grandfather took a few years ago, anticipating the situation. He hoped you would be found." A DNA test. That sounded convincing and terrifying. I felt my legs give out. I need to talk to my parents," I whispered. "We understand. Please contact us when you're ready to discuss the details. We are ready to provide any assistance." She hung up. I stood in the dark kitchen, still holding the phone, feeling my world shatter into a million tiny pieces. My life, my family, my identity, everything was in question. The next few hours were the hardest of my life. I called my parents. My mom answered, her voice cheerful as always. "Hi, son, how are you? Have you had dinner yet?" I didn't know how to start. "Mom, I just got a call from New York. Lawyers. They said my grandfather, Oleksandr Kovalchuk, indeed passed away in Ukraine in 1999. A dead silence fell on the other end of the line. Then I heard my mom sob. "Ole, son, that's not the grandfather." "Mom, please tell me the truth. Who was my real grandfather?" She started crying. "Come home, son. We need to talk." I drove to my parents' house that night. The road seemed endless. I imagined different scenarios, but none of them could have prepared me for what I heard. They sat in the kitchen, my father pale, my mother crying. They looked old and tired.
"Ivan, we hid the truth from you," my father began, his voice barely audible. "My father, your grandfather, Oleksandr Petrovich, he was different. He told me a story so incredible I could barely believe it was happening to me. My biological grandfather, Oleksandr Petrovich, was a talented engineer who, during World War II, ended up in Germany as an Ostarbeiter, a forced laborer. After the war, he did not return to the USSR, but emigrated to the United States, fearing repression. He left behind a wife and a small son, my father, in Ukraine. In the USSR, he was declared an enemy of the people and a traitor. My grandmother, to protect herself and her son, had to pretend her husband had died. She even invented a story about his death from a heart attack to avoid further problems with the authorities. He tried to contact us," my father said, wiping away tears. "He sent letters through acquaintances who traveled abroad, but we couldn't respond. It was dangerous. And then, when I grew up, and your mother and I got married, he found a way to send us money. He helped us, but we could never meet. He was afraid his past could harm us if we contacted him openly. He wanted you to live a normal life, without the shadow of his history." My mother added, "When you were born, he was so happy. He asked us to send you your photos. He always knew about you, Ivan. He loved you, even though he never saw you." I sat listening to this story, feeling a battle of anger, sadness, confusion, and some strange, bitter understanding inside me. My parents, who had always been models of honesty from me, had hidden such a huge part of my ancestry. They did it for my safety, for their survival, but it still hurt. I felt deceived. "Why didn't you tell me when I became an adult?" I asked, my voice trembling. "We were afraid, son. Afraid you'd be angry with us. Afraid you'd want to go there and it would be dangerous. We wanted to protect you from this burden." I understood their motives, but it didn't lessen the pain. My identity, my past, everything was different from what I thought. I decided to go to New York. I needed to see everything with my own eyes, to learn more about this unknown grandfather who had left me an inheritance and a secret. The trip to New York was like a journey to a parallel universe, from my quiet Lviv to the bustling, vibrant metropolis. I met Sarah Rosenberg. She was an elderly but energetic woman with kind eyes. She showed me documents, photographs, letters. Everything confirmed my parents' story.
My grandfather, Oleksandr Petrovich, was truly an incredible person. He started from scratch, working in construction, then opened a small business that eventually grew into a large construction company. He was successful, but he never forgot his roots. He anonymously supported Ukrainian communities in the US, funded educational programs, and helped refugees. The climax came when Sarah took me to his house. It wasn't just a house, but a real mansion in a prestigious area of Long Island. Huge, with a well-kept garden, a swimming pool, inside antique furniture, paintings, a library full of books in Ukrainian and English. It was the home of a man who had achieved everything but never forgot where he came from. In his study, on a large wooden table, lay a single photograph. My childhood photo, which I remembered from my parents' album. On the back, written in his hand, "My Ivanko, my hope." I picked it up, and tears welled up in my eyes. This was my grandfather, a man who had never seen me but loved and remembered me. He lived with this secret his whole life, and his last wish was for me to know the truth. Sarah told me he always hoped he could contact me personally, but he was afraid it might harm me or my parents, given the political situation in Ukraine. He waited for the collapse of the USSR, for changes that would allow him to openly reveal himself. When Ukraine gained independence, he began to look for ways, but he was already old and sick. He entrusted Sarah to find me after his death. She also showed me his diaries. He wrote them in Ukrainian, nostalgically recalling his homeland, his family, the son he had to leave behind. He wrote about me, about how he imagined my adult life, about his dreams for my future. It was incredibly painful and at the same time incredibly touching to read. I felt like I was getting to know him even though he was no longer there. I spent almost a month in New York. I handled the paperwork, met people who knew my grandfather. They told me about him, about his generosity, about his principles, about his love for Ukraine. I learned that he was a true patriot who dreamed of returning to his homeland his whole life, but never could. The inheritance was enormous. It wasn't just money, but an entire foundation that my grandfather created to support young Ukrainian talents. He wanted me to manage this foundation, to continue his work. It was not just a gift, but a responsibility. I returned to Ukraine with a huge baggage of emotions and new knowledge. My relationship with my parents slowly but surely began to improve. I told them everything I learned about my grandfather. They cried listening to my stories, and I saw their pain gradually turn into pride. They realized that they had hidden from me not just a secret, but the story of a great man. Olena and I talked a lot. She was my biggest support during this difficult period. She helped me cope with my emotions, understand and accept the new reality. I decided to stay in Ukraine. I couldn't just leave my life here, but I took on the responsibility for my grandfather's foundation. I started working on its development, looking for talented students who needed help. This became my new mission. I also began to study my family history more deeply, looking for other relatives who might be connected to my grandfather. This unexpected event changed me fundamentally. I realized that life is much more complex and unpredictable than I imagined. I learned that the truth, no matter how painful, should always be revealed, and that forgiveness is not weakness but strength. My parents, though with pain, accepted this new reality. We became closer than ever, because now there are no secrets between us. I understood that their lie was dictated by fear and love, and that helped me forgive. I continued to work as an engineer, but now my life has a new meaning. I manage my grandfather's foundation, helping young Ukrainians get an education and realize their potential. This is what my grandfather wanted, and this is what I can do for my country. I often think about Oleksandr Petrovich, about his life, about his struggle, about his love for the family he had to leave behind. He was a hero who lived in the shadows, and I am proud to be his grandson. This story taught me that surprises can not only be destructive, but also open up new opportunities, new paths. It showed me that even in the deepest secrets, great love and a great purpose can be hidden. Now I live not by a script, but by the call of my heart, ready for any surprises life may throw at me. And I know that my grandfather, wherever he is proud of me.
What's the most unexpected event that has happened in your life? Share your story in the comments below. Maybe you also have something that turned your world upside down? Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new stories. See you next time!